I would like to welcome you to our presentation today. Ecuador and Galapagos are open. How to visit and not quarantine. Brought to you today by Latin Trails, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to the president of Latin Trails and Isla Experience Hotel, Marcel Perkins. Welcome, Marcel.
Hi, Lee. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning or good evening. I know that we have people from all over the world attending this. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited because Ecuador is open again. And I know there's been a lot of questions, how do you arrive into Ecuador without doing a quarantine? Because at first, about a month ago, we still had a quarantine in place where travelers would have to spend 15 days in quarantine before being able to travel around the country. Well, that has been lifted. Of course, for that to happen, I just want to let you know that the whole travel industry as Ecuador has been going through very strict protocols, making sure that, there's a lot of discipline among the population, wearing masks and different things are put into place so that when we reopen, we can offer safety and health to our travelers as they visit this beautiful destination. Now, here we have on my presentation, we have a picture of the Galapagos Islands. This is one of those beautiful sceneries where we all wish we were there right now at this moment. Well, I was there last week, so I'm going to tell you how my trip was, what I had to do to arrive into the Galapagos Islands, and what your travelers have to do so that when they arrive into Ecuador and go onwards to the Galapagos, they do it without any trouble. So we're gonna, okay, here's some of the entry requirements. Now, to arrive into Ecuador, you need to complete a traveler's health card and letter of commitment. These are already printed out for you. It's like signing an affidavit, just stating that you are not sick at the moment, and that if you do turn out to be COVID positive, you will have to do a quarantine. Now, this is something that you should know in advance. Now, what do you need to enter Ecuador? If you're traveling to Ecuador alone and you're not going onwards to the Galapagos Islands, you need a COVID test. This has to be a PCR test. This is a nasal isotope test. They put something in your nose. It goes almost all the way up to the brain. It's not entertaining, but that's the test you have to take. And you need the results to be valid. So the test has to be taken within 10 days of arriving into Ecuador. If you come with the negative COVID test into Ecuador, you are allowed to travel freely around the country without any quarantine. What happens for travelers that don't come with a COVID test? Well, they can take it upon arrival in Ecuador. At the moment, the COVID, it can be taken at their hotel, so they would be directed to one of the official hotels. And the testers will go to the hotel, they'll take the test, and as soon as you get the results, they're allowed to travel around the country. But that would be a little bit uncomfortable. It's best to take it at home, have it pre-planned. I've heard on CBS, well, this is in the United States. Well, every country will have their own pharmacies and their own testing areas. That CBS in the United States is actually offering a 30-minute test upon appointment. So that might be very convenient, but I do recommend you take the test in advance, and with enough time so that you can travel without any issues. Now, if you're going onwards to the Galapagos Islands, the test has to be taken within 96 hours. That means 4 days of your trip to the islands, boarding your plane to the islands. So for travelers that are going to be combining Ecuador and Galapagos, what does that mean? Our recommendation is that, if they are going to visit the Galapagos Islands, that this be at the first leg of their trip. And once they've traveled onwards to the Galapagos, they can travel freely around Ecuador. So top recommendation, have the COVID PCR test taken 4 days before traveling, to Ecuador and onwards to the Galapagos Islands. That way they will have no issues. They will be able to arrive and travel to the Galapagos Islands without a problem. Now, here's the other documents you're going to need. Of course, a passport, a round trip ticket. Now, you also need to arrive into Galapagos Islands, travel and health insurance. Well, this is, I would say that, nowadays this is a no-brainer. Everybody should travel with health insurance and travel insurance. So that's any policy is valid. It's just you have to have it. And finally, a safe passage. What we call that here, when we talk about a safe passage, basically it is a document that's given to you as a traveler or to your guests by a local tour operator in Ecuador. that is based in the Galapagos Islands. It has an operating license in the Galapagos Islands. So that is necessary. The safe passage is given so that everybody that arrives into Galapagos has travel plans. Now, this is a requirement for the Galapagos Islands, not for Ecuador. You can arrive into Ecuador just with the COVID test and your round trip air ticket and your passport. Onwards to the Galapagos, you need the safe passage and you need the health insurance. Now, I'm going to share a quick video. This is a short video where it's actually me going to the Galapagos. I went to Galapagos last Thursday. Lucky me. I traveled between Thursday to Sunday. Well, the reason I traveled was I went to check in on the boats. We have 2 yachts in the Galapagos Islands, liveaboards, and a day trip boat. And I went to look at the services we have and make sure that all our protocols are in place. And this is my COVID test negative at the airport. It shows the procedure was nothing difficult. Now you can see the plane is pretty empty. Well, I was one of the last ones to deboard, but also you will notice that there's not much crowds right now in the Galapagos. So it's actually the perfect time to visit. You'll have the islands to yourself. Now travelers are starting to return. Of course, the Galapagos have never been crowded. We don't plan them to be crowded ever anyway, but it's one of those destinations where you're out in the open. And here's some of the protocols that are put in place at the airport. They spray down your luggage. These are chemicals that are not harmful to humans. This is again to checking my tests, and no problem to arrive. You know, they have all the protocols in place. You can see people wearing masks, but the Galapagos again are open, and so is Ecuador. So it's a very easy arrival procedure. Please, if you have any questions or any, want to know any additional details, we can help with that as well. I mean, place them in, and at the end of our presentation, we'll go over this again. And then, of course, this is part of the arrival procedures. As you can see, everybody has protocols into place. Social distancing. These are the buses that take you from the airport to the docks, and then onwards to your boat or to your hotel stay in the Galapagos Islands. So that's a little bit about the procedures of arriving, and the Galapagos is welcome, open to. There's no restrictions on nationalities. Now I'm going to go into details, a little bit of details about the biosecurity protocols on board our yachts. And actually, this is what is going to be done at most of the properties around Ecuador and the Galapagos. Upon arrival to our boats, the guide will provide a gel, a new kit. The kit is made up of a mask and gloves. Now, the mask, honestly, on your trip to the Galapagos, throughout the excursions, you don't have to use it. When you're in towns, if you do go into towns, it would be necessary. But mainly, the mask should be used on buses, when you're really close to the people, and on the Zodiac rides. That's the only place it's going to be required on our trips. Temperature will be taken for all guests upon arrival. There's a shoe disinfection area, and everybody's boarding the boat, of course, with a COVID-free test, because they've been taking it, just to get into the Galapagos Islands. And our crew members are being tested regularly. Before every departure, they get a test. So everybody's boarding the boat COVID-free. What does this mean for travelers? And I just want to let you know that. What it means for travelers is, they're boarding one of the safest trips they can take nowadays, an expedition cruise. This is not going to be just in Galapagos. It will be anywhere around the world, because you're boarding a boat that is COVID-free by testing, and nobody's getting off at ports. Our crew members are staying on board all the time. So they're not on and off going into town or anything. And you're going into a wildlife area that is remote, one of the remotest travel destinations on the planet, easy to get to, but remote still. And you're not meeting crowds. You're not going through where there's a lot of people. So it's actually pretty much a very confined environment. Now, everybody should know that, if you're wearing a mask and you wash your hands regularly, the risk of contracting COVID is very, very low, even if you're in the biggest cities. So this is the reason to reactivate. Now, I should tell you, Ecuador and Galapagos do need tourism. The Galapagos Islands depend 100% solely on tourism. So their economy is shot now. They're really hurting for travelers, and they're very happy that travelers can return. So services are going to be right up to the very top. People are going to be very friendly, and travel will help conservation of the Galapagos Islands. Now, a little bit about the cleaning procedures we're going to have on board. We've identified high traffic areas, so these will be cleaned several times a day. Cabins will be cleaned twice a day. Now, cabins, in terms of protocols, the person that's cleaning your cabin will be the same person cleaning your cabin throughout the entire trip, so that you know that. Linens, towels, napkins will be labeled, so that the same guest uses these. They will be washed and everything. We have the possibility, but they will be labeled so that they're not shared with other guests. On board our boats, hot tubs will be kept empty until further notice. They will not be used unless it's a single family charter. We have instructions on how to wash hands and everything, although I think that everybody nowadays has been through those instructions quite a while. After every cruise departure, of course, the boats are disinfected completely. There's hand sanitizing rub and disposable tissue dispensers throughout the boat. There's biohazard disposal waste bins. Air conditioning equipment and its proper functioning and filters are checked and have been are made sure that that they will not be causing any issues. Now, one thing to notice on our boats, the air conditioning is individualized for each cabin, so it's not a central air conditioning. Now, one thing about meals and briefings in the Galapagos Islands, when you travel there, it's a nature destination, and every evening the guide will give a briefing, and when you have the meals, we have meals at the same time. Now, fortunately, on our boats, on the Seaman Journey and the Sea Star Journey, and I'm sure this is on many other boats as well in the Galapagos, we have separated social areas. So we have an indoor dining area and 2 outside dining areas on each boat. These can be used for briefing and for dinners and meals. If it's not a single family traveling on a charter, we can separate the group into 3 different areas, actually. For 16 travelers, that's actually quite easy. We'll have 5 or 6 travelers in each area, and the areas are spacious, so we have social distancing in place as well. Just to let you know, and this is going to be operational for the briefings as well. On the next slide, this is, I think, to be the most important part of what we have done throughout this time is, what happens if somebody gets sick on board? What are the protocols? We've gone through all the scenarios. We've gone through the worst and the best case scenarios. Well, if somebody has symptoms of being sick with COVID, guide and crew members will inform the captain. We will inform health authorities, and it will be managed with discretion. Now, the person will be required to maintain a distance from everybody else, at least 2 meters. And this is actually going to be the protocol on the boats and everywhere we go anyway. If necessary, the ill person with COVID symptoms would be confined to their cabin until the health authorities arrive and make another and assess if it's necessary for this person to stay to be deboarded. We would now that would be arranged. That's where travel insurance comes in and health insurance, because they have to cover the costs of departing the boat at that moment. Now, we will not stop the cruise. We've decided that the cruise will continue to the end, so the rest of the travelers can finish enjoying their journey. Of course, at the end of the trip, everybody will be tested, including the crew members. Why would we be continuing the cruise? Well, to arrive to the next port, it's going to make sense, and the amount of time it will take us if we did a straight navigation would not make much of a difference, depending on the area of the archipelago we are at. Now, in case of an emergency, we would return to port, and that would terminate the cruise. Now, these are the protocols. Of course, the person that is confined to the cabin will have services, will have room service, and all the meals will be taken to their room. There is enough space in each room for that, and they will be attended by one person that has been trained in health procedures in preventing infection spreading. So these are some of the protocols. A few things we've done, and not just us. This is actually throughout Ecuador. Many of the suppliers, especially in the luxury travel segment, have already acquired or complied to the Safe Travels certification. This is provided by the World Travel and Tourism Council. Over 200 companies altogether, and combined with governments and other travel suppliers around the world, have agreed on certain protocols that make sense. And these have been implemented. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you is you're not going to arrive into an area that looks like a hospital, where everybody's, not apart from wearing a mask, is wearing a screen and has all these gloves and everything on board the boats or at hotels or at restaurants. No, everybody, gloves are not used. They're wearing a face mask at service areas. And this is, what the safe travel protocols come to, not exaggerating, but making sure that everything is clean and in place. For example, sterilization of cutlery at restaurants and things like that are in place. So these are the protocols. This is the safety seal we've acquired, and we're working hard on training, not just at the Latin Trail staff on the ground and throughout mainland Ecuador, but at Isla Experience Hotel on board the boats, at Hakuna Matata Amazon Lodge that we run, and of course throughout our whole supply chain. And we've required our main suppliers to go through the certification as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about our products in Ecuador and what we can offer you apart from our DMC services. Now, Latin Trails focuses on the luxury travel segment. We do cater to mid-market travelers as well. We do everything on a business-to-business basis. So we work with travel agents and tour operators. Some of our products that are exclusive are Ila Experience Hotel. It's in the downtown area of Quito. Hakuna Matata Amazon Lodge. It's 3.5 hours from the Quito airport. And then we have in the Galapagos Islands our own boats, the Galapagos Sea Star Journey, the Galapagos Seaman Journey. These are both our liveaboards, and the Galapagos Hopper, which is a day trip boat. Now, at the moment, we've entered partnerships with several other boat operators, and now we're expanding our portfolio, and we're going to be adding 4 additional catamarans to our fleet. We're going to be working with them on an exclusive basis, and I'll be presenting that to you as well in a little bit. Well, just a summary about Latin Trails. As I said, B2B, we have 17 years of experience. Our itineraries are customized. We offer 24/7 concierge services to back up our travel services throughout the ground. We have a service level agreement in place, and everything we can do for you as a B2B partner is hand-holding, training, online availability, and dedicated travel partners, amongst them Christopher and Adriana. Unfortunately, I think their audio is not working that well today, but they are in the webinar as well as part of the rest of our team is here with us too. This is a little bit about the destinations we do cover as a DMC, not just Ecuador, but we specialize in the Amazon. We can help you out with Peru, Chile, Argentina, of course, Ecuador and Galapagos, and Bolivia. Now, a little bit about our boats. This is the Galapagos Sea Star Journey. It's a 16-passenger yacht. I'm going to go briefly through the slides, and I'm going to be sharing this presentation with you later on. We're going to record it so you can go through it. A little bit about the social areas. As you can see, it's a spacious boat on the inside, as well as on other areas as well, both indoor and outdoor dining areas. We have a second outdoor dining area on the upper deck. So there's a lot of outdoor space. Now, as I mentioned, the jacuzzis will not be in use during this time, but if it's a single family charter, we can actually have them operational. This is the Sea Star Suite. Our cabins are on the spacious side. This one has 35 square meters. There's a sofa bed for a child, and it's a connecting cabin that can be used for families. You can connect it with the cabin that's next to it. This is the Twin Galapagos Suite that's actually right next to the Sea Star Suite. This is 25 square meters. That's the average size of all our cabins. On our main deck, cabins have private balconies. It can be configured as matrimonial or twin. Now, activities. We'll still be doing snorkeling. That's a good thing. Of course, equipment is constantly being disinfected. You can bring your own equipment. Sea kayaking. These are sit-on-top kayaks, and they're easy to use. On the Sea Star, we have a glass-bottom Zodiac for those who don't do marine activities or are not keen on swimming. And some of our itineraries. I'll go through these briefly, but I'll just tell you that we have 3 itineraries on the Sea Star. One of them is a 5-night, 6-day that goes to the southern islands of the archipelago. Then we have a 4-night, 5-day that goes to the northern islands of the archipelago, and a 5-night, 6-day that goes around the western side. Then we have another boat, the Galapagos Seaman Journey. This is also for 16 travelers. Also has private bathrooms in all cabins, ocean view windows, a very spacious boat. And very comfortable as well. This is the indoor areas, our social area where we give the briefings, our main dining area. Now, as I mentioned before, we have several dining areas, and the tables can be split up for social distancing. These are the main deck twin cabins, ocean views, and our matrimonial suites. These are on the upper deck. We have 2 of these, and we can add a sofa bed for a child. We recommend a child 12 and under for this. For the triple cabin. Now, one thing we're doing right now during the pandemic, we're actually having a lot of promotions and all that. We're going to be sharing those with you. But one of them is, anybody under 18, we're offering the children a child discount. So that way, everybody can actually have access to that discount, and we're making it more accessible for families to travel together. And remember, when you visit Ecuador, one of the most important attractions on mainland is the Otavalo market or the indigenous markets. What do you do at the markets? You barter and you bargain. So we are open to bargaining. At this time, everybody needs business. So, if you have a group we're open to, negotiating and helping you reach the best price. If we don't have space on our boats, as I said, we have other catamarans in our portfolio that we're going to be sharing with you. And we have other boats as well. So we'll be able to accommodate and help you make the best for your travelers. Again, this is one of our outdoor dining areas on board the Seaman Journey. And this is our sun deck. So as you can see, these are spacious outdoor areas. And the luxury is in the experience, once again. Our itineraries, we have a 3-night program that goes to the Northern Islands, a 4-night program that goes around the Southern Islands, and a 7-night program that goes around the western side of the Galapagos archipelago. Now, other boats that we are offering is the Galapagos Petrel. Here's a quick picture of it. We'll be sending you also details of this one. We have the Anaí catamaran also back into our portfolio. And this is our day trip boat. Now, we understand that, there are travelers that do not want to do just a liveaboard cruise, but they're happy in staying at a hotel in the Galapagos Islands and doing day trips. Well, the Galapagos Hopper offers day trips from San Cristobal Island. On San Cristobal Island, there are some really nice first-class hotels. One of them is the Galapagos Sunset Suites, which is already open and operational. So is the Golden Bay Hotel. Now, the Golden Bay is right at the beach. It's a good 4-star plus property. So these are great options for travelers that do not want to sleep on board a boat. The Galapagos Hopper is one of the options of many boats on San Cristobal. We also offer this type of service on Santa Cruz Island, Isabela, and on Floriana. These are islands that have hotels, and we can offer day trips on several boats. This is just a sample of the Hopper. Some of the daily tours from San Cristobal Island include Española Island. Here we have a picture of the famous blowhole. And this island is famous because it's the only place in the islands where you can spot the waved albatross. Kicker Rock, this is another great day tour that we can offer with a Hopper itself. What's really nice about this location is for snorkeling, you actually have the possibility, not guaranteed, but of spotting hammerhead sharks. Finally, Punta Empt, one of my favorite day tour visitor sites. This is the only site in the Galapagos where you can spot the 3 types of boobies in the same place: the blue-footed, the red-footed, and the masked boobies. So this is also a day trip that can be done from San Cristobal Island. Now, there's several options for hotel-based trips in the Galapagos, and we can offer scuba diving, combining an extension after taking a liveaboard cruise, or day trips from, as I mentioned, San Cristobal, Santa Cruz, and Isabela Island. All these are bespoke, and we can offer you that. And the level of service will depend on the hotel travelers want to book into. As I said, we specialize in trails mainly in luxury travel, but we also can accommodate mid-market travelers. Some of our comment cards and how we review the trips after every journey, and we'll be sharing this with you. Now, our trips are done on a business-to-business basis and are unbranded. Another product we have in our portfolio, this is a hotel we opened in December 2017. It's a 10-room property, Isla Experience Hotel. It's a 5-star colonial mansion that has been restored and converted to a hotel. Now, what's the most important thing about Isla? And if we remember anything, is the experiences. Every afternoon, we interact with local artisans, housewives, neighbors from Isla that make their livelihood throughout traditions. And these traditions are brought into Isla at the hotel. And that's what Isla is about. That's why we call it Isla Experience Hotel. Some of the details about Isla, it's in a neighborhood called San Marcos. This is our courtyard. San Marcos is special because it's in the downtown historic area of Quito, and it's still residential. So around the world, one of the few residential neighborhoods inside a historic downtown area is the San Marcos neighborhood in Quito. And Ila's right in the square of that, 5 minutes walking from the main plaza, from the Plaza Grande and the cathedral and the main churches in Quito. So you get to stay in the downtown area. Now, this is one of our rooms. Everything in the hotel has been handmade, and it has our family traditions. We've put our heart and soul into this. So we're happy to greet our guests with that and share one of the most traditional areas of Quito. This is one of our Panecillo View suites. The Panecillo Hill in Quito is equivalent to having a room view to the Eiffel Tower in Paris or the Corcovado at Rio de Janeiro. That's how iconic the Panecillo Hill with the winged version on top is for Quito and for Quiteños. At Isla, well, some of the infrastructure, but as I mentioned, the key thing is the experiences, but also we have Nuema. Nuema is one of the 50 best restaurants in South America. It's been qualified as that just before the pandemic. It's been recognized by Travel Leisure and several other magazines. And our chef Alejandro Chamorro has we decided that we're going to continue having Nuema at Isla, and we're open. We're actually having our first guests already. This is a rooftop with a view of Panecillo, and we have a lot of special areas that we've opened up. We've actually expanded our rooftop terrace. So for social distancing, we have outside dining and a lot of special treats for everybody that is willing to visit us. Some of our artisans are here. Miss Gladys, this is Miss Olga, and this is our watercolor artist, Jerry Reno. So these are all neighbors from San Marcos. Miss Gladys she's a housewife actually, but she makes some of the best desserts, traditional desserts, handmade ice cream that she can share with our guests. Of course, everything with social distancing and protocols. I'm wearing a straw hat from Ecuador. There's different styles. Well, Miss Olga, she's from Cuenca. That's where the hats originally are made. And she lives in San Marcos. So she visits us every once in a while and shares her trade with our guests. And they learn how to make a straw hat. And again, Jerry Reynoso offers watercolor lessons on the rooftop. These are 3 out of about 50 experiences we can offer at Isla. And every day we offer a different experience to our guests. Jacuzzi and spa, everything, of course, under appointment and safe protocols. Now, one thing that I wanted to tell you about is Isla can also become a villa. Since there's only 10 rooms, we're offering a full hotel buyout if you take out at least 5 rooms. That way, your group, if it's a family or a group of friends or they're chartering a yacht in the Galapagos, can also have Isla to themselves as a full buyout. And this is not just for Isla. We've identified about 50 small hotels around Ecuador that can be bought out. And we are offering that for our guests. As I mentioned, we specialize in luxury travel, and we can offer that as well. Now, I'm just going to go briefly over Hakuna Matata Amazon Lodge. Not many people know about this property yet. Well, it's 3.5 hours from Quito, from the Quito airport, and it's in the Amazon rainforest. And the views are spectacular anywhere from the lodge. You have the Yanguenates corridor, and you have both wildlife and adventure activities at this place. It's the equivalent of a 4-star property. This is a family room, actually, with a connection to the next room, in the room next door. There is orthopedic mattresses, gel pillows, and it's located in an area where there's no mosquitoes. 3.5 hours from the Quito airport, so no second flight is needed actually to visit the Ecuadorian Amazon. This is one of our suites. As you can see, they're very spacious, but they've been built into the traditional Amazon architecture. Whitewater rafting is one of the activities. This can be done 365 days a year. We're at the equator. Some of the activities nearby, visiting local communities, horseback riding, nature trails, meeting the locals, and of course, making your own chocolate. Ecuador is well known for its chocolate. The Arriba chocolate of cocoa bean is one of the best on the planet. And then we have nearby an Amazon Rescue Center. There's a parrot play lake. I'm just going to summarize our mainland services that I mentioned before: private guide and transport, self-drive options as well, small hotel buyouts, hotel upgrades, meaning that we can upgrade a hotel to the standards of our travelers by bringing in our own linens, our chef, our staff. If it's in a remote location, there's not proper hotels, so not just upgrading your travelers to a better room, but upgrading the hotel to the level that your travelers need. We have a 24/7 concierge service, custom travel planning, and everything is done on a B2B basis. Some of our experiences just near Quito, Chungo Solitario. This means lonely heart. It's a pop-up restaurant. We can open up at anywhere around or nearby Quito with a fine gourmet deal, a dinner or lunch. And again, we've identified, as I said, remote areas. Luxury private transportation. This vehicle actually belongs to Isla Experience Hotel for our travelers and their transfers. We also have self-drive programs with 4x4 vehicles. This is one of our vans, one of our buses, and a review from one of our guides. So that's a little bit about Latin Trails. And now I'm going to leave some time for questions and anything you would like to know about Ecuador, how we're reopening, or any of the protocols that I've mentioned. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Marcel. I'm sorry to have cut you off there. I was so excited because there are so many questions. Okay, so if I may, I'd like to start back with some of the COVID protocol questions, and then I've got a lot of questions about destination and properties and so forth. Do you know on the PCR tests, are PCR blood tests also valid? Have you heard anything about that?
No, from what I understand, and as little as I know, the PCR test is a nasal test with isotope in it that's inserted into the nose. That's the only test that Ecuador government validates. So a blood test will not be valid, or any other rapid test is not going to be validated by the Ecuadorian government for travel to Ecuador and to the Galapagos Islands.
Okay, thank you. And we have a client an advisor whose client would actually be coming in from Peru, having spent a little bit of time there prior to arriving in Ecuador. Would a test in Peru be acceptable?
Absolutely. As long as it's a PCR test and it's from a laboratory. Now, from a valid laboratory or, hospital that is, recognized by the
Hmm.
Peruvian government.
Sure. Okay, good. Good. Thank you. Um, and then what did you say? What are the restrictions for flying into Quito? Are there any?
Not really. I mean, what you need to have is the valid PCR test. Of course, your valid passport, and those are general travel rules. It has to be the passport has to be valid for at least 6 months from when you arrive. Um, your round trip air ticket, of course, validating that you're going to be, leaving the country after that. But the PCR test, basically, and to arrive into Ecuador, it has to be taken within 10 days of your travel date or arrival date into Ecuador.
Okay. And
For the
then
Galapagos, it's 4 days.
4 days. And then you also need the safe travel certificate for Galapagos, right?
Yes, well, not the safe the safe passage.
Safe passage.
It's something that guarantee what the safe passage means basically, and it's called a safe passage, but it's a salvoconducto in Spanish. Basically, what it is, it's a passage certificate that it's certifying that you have travel arrangements, that you're not going to arrive into the Galapagos and start looking for accommodation at that moment, and walking out around looking where to stay, and that you don't have any arrangements. Basically, that's what it's guaranteeing.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. Since we're talking health questions, I'll ask you this question about visiting the Amazon. Is it advised to get a yellow fever shot?
That is something that only a doctor can tell you, to be honest. Now, one thing to take into account about, tropical areas, the Amazon, the population in the Amazon and where the lodges are, where you're going to be visiting, is quite low. And just let me give you an idea. Is basically, I mean, to catch yellow fever, the mosquito has to bite somebody that's infected first, and then bite you to transmit it. That's the only way it's transmitted. Now, the populations are low in the Amazon, so the possibility of that happening or any outbreaks at the moment, there isn't any throughout the Amazon. Tropical lowlands and other, I mean, where there's higher populations, yes, it's more common. But again, you have to consult a physician. What a physician's going to say is take the yellow fever vaccine.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, moving on. This question, it says, COVID is, one problem at this time. The other is availability. What is your minimum capacity to run a cruise, and how many cruises do you have scheduled through the end of this year?
Absolutely. Well, that's why we've partnered with several boats. As I mentioned, we're working with the Petrel, the Anaí as well. We've also reached today an agreement to be representing the Ocean Spray and the Camila catamaran. These are also luxury boats in the Galapagos, and we have partnership with other boat owners as well. And we're joining in departures so that if somebody books into something, they will be able to depart. Now, the minute the boats they carry 16 passengers, and we're only taking bookings. I'm sure, and I'm confident everybody else is doing the same on departures that we have guaranteed already. So, for example, on the Seaman Journey, we have confirmed the departure for Christmas right now, and then onwards from 2021 onwards, we have regular departures. Now, on other boats, if you send us an email, we'll find availability for you, and we'll let you know which boats are departing in September, October, November. It's going to vary at the very beginning until everything gets running. But I think that by 2021, The first leg, I would say that we already have a lot of confirmed departures that we can book travelers into.
I love this cooperation. This is really phenomenal. So it's neat to see all of the operators coming together like this. It
Well,
makes a lot of sense.
it's actually something that's been in place for quite a while. It's just that it hasn't been announced in that way. And, since there was a very high demand, basically, if we had a request, we would actually, let our travel planners or our clients or travel agents that work with us, let them know if we have something available, or we would recommend another boat that we have available. Now, we've put into place agreements with them, where we actually are going to represent them at trade shows. They're going to represent us at trade shows. So a lot of agreements have been made, and, it's going to help everybody in that sense. But in general, it's something we've always done. I mean, we have a great relationship, and I think we're here to help each other out, and that's basically what it is. One thing we've all done is we've changed our cancellation policies, our booking policies. Right now, I mean, we are offering to secure space, for any departure throughout 2021, 2022, with just a 10% deposit. And another thing we've done is, and I think this is across the border, at least if you book it with us, 30 days before the departure date, we are allowing 31 days, we're allowing travelers to change the date if it's for any reason or anything. So that way the deposit can be, moved to another date, and they won't lose their deposit or anything like that. We want to be flexible. We want to help travelers to book and visit the Galapagos Islands.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great. Thank you. The full buyout of the hotel, how many guests are required for that?
If they take out 5 rooms, but we have a special rate, and we'll be sharing that with all our agent partners that are here attending, and those that couldn't make it either, as well. I mean, the hotel buyout is 5 rooms, and and that allows you to bring in 10 guests, including their breakfast and everything. If there's additional guests, they only have to pay the additional breakfast, and that's not going to be expensive. And we've reached this agreement not just at ILA, but at several other hotels. So you can ask us which hotels or which locations around Ecuador we can do the buyouts, and we'll do that for them.
Okay. The partner boats and then the hotels, have capacity been reduced on these, or just by nature are they already small enough that you haven't had to reduce?
Well, restaurants and venues in that sense have been reduced to right now are working at 75% capacity in most locations. There are locations where they're at 50% capacity. It depends on the local regional governments, but most properties are at 75% capacity with social distancing, for one thing. At hotels, depending if they have in common areas, the capacity is reduced, but within room occupation, it hasn't been done because you're the only person going into your room. On the boats, there's 16 passenger boats, and they're all very spacious, the boats that we're working with. And if anybody's been on a boat in the Galapagos or anything, I'll tell you that social areas can accommodate travelers that could be completely alone in that social area. So they're small enough, as you mentioned, by default. But again, I mean, it won't be crowded, and that has been taken into place. And every property that has reopened has gone through the protocols of the local government, which are actually quite strict. And I can tell you one thing, Lee, within the travel industry, anybody that's in adventure travel, and this is not just Ecuador, but around the world, we follow all these protocols. I mean, it's never been really crowded, and we follow very strict hygiene protocols for food, because when travelers, go around the world and they're eating, outdoor, in another place where they're not from, their main concern is not, getting sick to their stomach. And we've always been taking care of that. And, if you think of the protocols that have been in place already throughout the travel industry, they're very high already. And the type of properties we use and the hotels we use, and and I speak for the industry in general, are going to be really cautious about what we serve to our guests. So I think it's really safe to travel in general, not just Ecuador and Galapagos, but any place around the world. But Ecuador and Galapagos have put in a lot of protocols into place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's really just an extension of what you've already been doing, which I think is terrific. Um, let me just ask you some questions about actually the experience. There are quite a few, and I'm sure this is a very common question you get about motion sickness on the smaller boats, and wondering how clients fare and whether it is a concern.
Well, it is a concern for clients because you have movement on any boat. Now, when you talk about a smaller boat, any boat that's 100 passengers or less, it's going to actually be quite small. Just to give you an idea, in terms of proportions, the Sea Star Journey, our yacht, it's 42 meters long. A boat that carries 100 passengers in Galapagos is going to be about 80 meters. So it's just twice the size of the Sea Star and a little bit wider and heavier. So you're not talking about, a big difference in size amongst the small boats in Galapagos for one part. So all boats will have movement. What you have to notice is, on the smaller boats, one of the advantages, and I'm sure the bigger boats have their advantages, when you're navigating, yes, you will have more movement. But when we dock, or when we anchor, actually, because there's no docks, when we anchor in a bay in the Galapagos, we're in calm waters because we can go in close inside a closed bay. When a larger boat anchors, they're actually anchoring out into open sea. So they have movement all the time. The small boat has no movement when it's actually anchored inside a bay. It does move more when it's navigating. But usually when it's navigating, you're sleeping, you're in bed because we navigate at night for one part. Now, when it comes to seasickness and all that, the best time to travel around the Galapagos, if you're prone to seasickness, is the first half of the year. That's January through June, where the sea is a little bit more, it's calmer than usual. Now, you're in the ocean, you're always going to have movement though. Another thing to notice is, if travelers are really prone to seasickness, they should travel around the eastern side of the archipelago. And we're talking about itineraries that include the southern islands with Hispaniola or the northern islands with Genovesa. There is a part, there's a leg of the navigation which is a little bit moved, but it's not that much. The western side around Isabela and that far side, which is extremely beautiful, one of my favorite areas, has a little bit more movement. But in general, navigations are shorter on the eastern side of the islands. And this is if somebody is really, really extremely scared about seasickness. Otherwise, usually travelers that have an ear patch or a bracelet or take, one of the Dramamine pills, they're okay, and they can go through the entire navigations and everything without a problem.
Okay, thank you. We have someone who perked up when you were talking about whale sharks. So can you scuba with whale sharks?
If you take a scuba diving cruise, yes, that's the most common way to do it. Usually day trips in the Galapagos that include scuba diving, from Santa Cruz or San Cristobal Island, you will not encounter the whale sharks. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's not as common. But to encounter the whale sharks, you're going to have to go and take a liveaboard cruise out to the western side of Isabela and further up to Darwin and Wolf Island. That's where they're more commonly spotted, and so that's, it's going to be, that is the main thing if you want to see whale sharks. Yes, you can scuba with them actually.
That's amazing. Okay, good. All right, moving over to the Amazon. What wildlife would one see at the Amazon Lodge, the one that's just 3 hours away from Quito?
Well, pretty much, the Amazon rainforest is a secret forest. So wildlife is always hidden. It's there, but it's hidden. Now, you definitely will encounter primates. Nearby, there's a parrot playleg. And then there's a rescue center where we'll spot, the tapir and other wildlife. But again, through the trails, there is primary rainforest trails in this area as well. So it's a very healthy rainforest, just as healthy as any part of the Amazon. It just has, and just so that when you visit the Amazon rainforest and you want to spot wildlife, it has to do a lot of luck, the time you get up in the morning, if you get up very early, and if you're quiet enough. Those are the main factors. But the wildlife is present throughout the entire jungle of the Amazon. But there is lodges, that are further in that you have to fly into that have access to several claylets, where, yes, jaguars have been spotted, but if you want to spot a jaguar, you're better off going onto the Pantanal and not into the Amazon rainforest, because it's more likely that you won't spot it in the Amazon than spotting it. It has to do with a lot of luck. Then if you're talking about, a tapir or bigger animals, again, it's a lot of luck, but primates, and the bird life are there. That's what I can tell you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And again, what was the name of the hotel in the Amazon that you discussed earlier?
Hakuna Matata Amazon Lodge. It's part of a private wildlife reserve, that covers 124 hectares. So first it was a wildlife reserve, and finally throughout the last year we finally made quite a few upgrades and pushed it up to a 4-star level, and that's why we're starting to promote it more openly to the travel industry. But it's been always a wildlife reserve and a research center throughout many years, and now it's actually it is amongst the better hotel infrastructure in the Amazon basin right now. But there's several other lodges. If travelers still want to, take a second flight and fly into the Amazon, that's doable. I mean, and the lodges are there's extremely beautiful lodges, and some of the best. I mean, I'll mention them are La Selva Jungle Lodge, Sacha Lodge, Napa Wildlife Center, Sani Lodge, among quite a few in the Yasuni Park area. Then in the Cuyaveno area, you have Tapir Lodge. I mean, there's an endless list, but we can recommend what is good for each traveler depending on their interest and what they're looking really to see. One of the advantages of the lodge that's close to Quito, and there's several others in the area as well, is that you can drive into it. So you don't have to take a second flight. You have interaction with local culture as well. You have the Quechua people, but if you actually go on from Hakuna Matata as a starting point, and we want to go further in, we can go to the southern part of Ecuadorian Amazon near past the Pastaza province and into Macas, where we have the Ashuar people, and you can actually meet this amazing tribe and the culture they have and all they have to share. Of course, we'll be preparing a webinar on the entire Amazon for the future, but just to let you know, there's a lot to see.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Okay, let me ask you one more destination question, and then we've still got a lot of COVID questions. So I think that we need to make sure everybody's comfortable with talking to their clients. So we'll spend a little more time on that. But there's a question here about how you determine the pros and cons of a cruise versus a hotel stay in the Galapagos. Like, what should you compare, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of each?
Okay. Well, the main advantage of taking a cruise is that you wake up every day at a different island. You're arriving at the visitor site at 6 a.m. at the latest. Then you have a morning excursion that lasts 2 hours hiking. I'm just giving ballpark figures here. 45 minutes snorkeling. You're back on board. You avoid the midday sun. You have lunch on board, and you navigate a quick navigation of about 45 minutes to an hour to the next visitor site, and you have the same range of activities in the afternoon. You sail to a different island at night, so the long navigation, it could be even 10 hours because some places are extremely remote, and a 10-hour navigation at night, and then you're at a different island. And that way you make the most of your time. With a hotel stay, you're going to be confined to one island. We recommend, staying at least, changing hotels as least as possible so you can make the most of your time. Now, the day trip is going to start early in the morning, but you're going to navigate, 2 to 3 hours to the visitor site. You have your excursion, you have your snorkeling, lunch is usually included on board, and then you have to sail all the way back to the island, being San Cristobal, Santa Cruz, or Isabela. Well, Isabela doesn't offer that type of day trips. Everything is on the island itself. But from Santa Cruz to San Cristobal, you have this going out and coming back. So as you can see, if you wanted to see the same amount of visitor sites, it's going to take you twice the amount of time. And there's remote sites you would not be able to reach on a day trip. That's the main differences.
Okay, good. All right, back to some more safe travel questions. There is a question about whether this safe passage letter is something that guests would receive upon arrival, or do they need to print it and bring it with them in advance?
Well, it will actually be sent to them by email from their local operator. If it's the Latin Trails, we'll send it to them. If it's somebody else, it will be sent to them. And they can have it on their phone, actually. They don't necessarily have to print it, as long as they have it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And what are you seeing are other nationalities other than Ecuadorians traveling to Galapagos right now? Are you actually seeing an influx of world travelers at the moment?
Well, travelers that can leave their country and that can reach Ecuador, yes. I mean, of course, at the moment, nobody's coming in from Australia because they can't leave their country. But we've had travelers from the US. There's quite a few actually on the plane when I was traveling. There was a few travelers from the United States, from Canada as well, North America, other Latin America countries. Right now, we're starting to have flights coming in from Europe. So there will be European travelers as well, but little by little it's opening up. Ecuador has been one of the first countries to open up, mainly because I mean the health system is not overridden. We can't say we have COVID control. Nobody can say that because there could be a second surge or anything could happen around the world. So we're not gonna make that statement. But what we can tell you is you have the same possibility of catching COVID at home as if you were in Ecuador. And in Ecuador, travelers and locals have the same possibility of catching it from a neighbor or from a traveler. That's all I'm going to say there. And it's just about, it's not, there's no country in the world that is COVID free. And there's no, I mean, in that sense. So right now, it only makes sense to be more cautious when you go out of your house and wear a mask and wash your hands. I mean, this is just what my opinion. I'm not a doctor or anything like that to go any further into that. But again, we're having travelers from anywhere around the world that can make their way into Ecuador, and it's open, and they're able to enjoy the country and enjoy the attractions that Ecuador has. And Ecuador's never been a crowded place.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Boy, I know this next question is probably going to be very difficult for you to answer, but I would
I love
imagine you're
those.
getting I'd imagine you're getting some guidance from the government on this, but do you happen to know we have an advisor who she's thinking ahead to April where she's got some travelers going in April. Do you have any sense of how long the 4-day requirement for the PCR test in the Galapagos will be in effect? I mean, is this something we can think about now and pretty much ensure that it'll be the same in April, or what are you hearing?
Well, I think it's going to be in place. The only thing I think that will lift that PCR test, and this is my opinion, I could be wrong. The only thing that will lift that is going to be a vaccine. And I think it's going to be required in general because, if somebody is positive, with COVID, and they don't have symptoms, they could go spreading it around everywhere. And basically we still have to be cautious. I think not just in Ecuador, but anywhere around the world in that sense because not everybody reacts in a good way to the disease, and I think it's a positive thing that people are being tested because when they're boarding the boat, we know that they don't have COVID.
Yeah. Um, so just following up on that, if can you tell us again what is your protocol on board if someone does start to feel sick? What was tell us again the plan for that, please?
Well, yeah, the plan would be actually, well, the first thing we do is inform the health authorities. The captain knows, the crew knows. It'll be managed with discretion. They have to keep distance with the rest of the guests. And if we see that, that the symptoms are very, very, strong in that sense, they will be confined to their cabin until the health authorities arrive. This will be most likely during the same day, unless we are in a very remote area. And if we're in a remote area, we would have to evacuate them towards the population, the closest population, and then they would be tested, and they would be offered medical treatment.
Okay.
So basically, that's the initial protocol. The cruise will end because our cruises I mean, are 4, 5, and 7 day, 8 days. So basically, for somebody to develop symptoms, it's not. I doubt it's going to be on the first day. If it's on the first day, they would have to disembark just then. But for somebody to develop symptoms, it's going to take a few days because they've been tested just before they arrived, and we're taking their temperature upon arrival. So these are just general protocols. The cruise would actually complete its routing because everybody else on board, unless they have symptoms as well, of course, we would have to finish the cruise. But after the cruise, what would happen is everybody has to be tested,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there onwards, there is the possibility of a quarantine, and that's why it's important, that testing is done, 4 days before going into the Galapagos Islands. That way, we're reducing the possibilities of a case developing. We're not saying it can't develop, and that we're not saying that there is no cases in the Galapagos.
Yeah.
You can't say that anywhere in the world. But if something does happen, these are the protocols, and of course, the evacuation procedures have been put into place. That travelers can return to one of the main towns in Galapagos and then get offered medical treatment. The government right now is working hard, adding more hospital beds, adding more processing plants for oxygen and different things like that. Those are things that the government is doing, and they're putting a lot of protocols into place. And before we decided to open, as a government, all the committees met, and there's a strict, they made sure that they had that the Galapagos were ready to actually offer medical assistance in case if somebody got sick at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So one last question, and then I'll turn it back to you for closing comments. We have several people asking about private charters and who they contact to get a quote for that.
Okay, well, our main email address right now is reservations@latintrails.com. But for our travel agents that live in Europe, our main agent there is Christopher Wild. His email address is sales3@latintrails.com. For the UK and the United States, it's Adriana. She's right there right now. She's going to say hello if she can hear me. It's sales8@latintrails.com. And for Australia, Asia, and other parts of Europe, we have Julio Salazar. His email address is sales7@latintrails.com. And of course, if you email at reservations@latintrails.com, we will get back to you. We are available on Skype. Our Skype is Ecuador Boutique Travel. And we will be sending and sharing all our contact information after the webinar.
Terrific.
We also have availability online. Of course, we will not take charter booking throughout an online system, but that's something that has to be discussed, because if there is a charter, sometimes travelers want an upgrade in food. They want to go through all the details, and we want to make sure that if somebody takes a charter, it's the perfect fit for them. And of course, if it's not 16 travelers coming, it's only 8 or something, we can negotiate pricing and stuff like that as well. As I said, we're willing to bargain and to make things happen and offer the best of the services for our travelers.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. This has been terrific. You have so many wonderful comments. I cannot wait to share them all with you. I'll get you the full report and the unanswered questions. I'd like to turn it back to you now, Marcel, for anything else you want to say before we close.
Well, Lee, I just wanted to thank you and thank everybody that has been listening to us. We've had so many people attending this webinar. We're very happy. We're happy with the results. It's been great. And we're happy that Ecuador is open. Please send us your questions. Anything that, there's no difficult questions. We have to answer them all, and we're here for that. Please pick our brains, our minds, and if there's something we don't know, we'll investigate it with the local authorities, and we will make sure that, that you can travel, your travelers can come in safely to Ecuador, that they have all the protocols in place, and that they have a carefree journey. So that's what we're here for. Thank you for joining us, and I know that you're here to help us reopen, and we're here to help you, restart your business. So let's get those partnerships going, and thank you.
Yeah.
Hope to see you soon in Ecuador.
Absolutely. So everybody, we will get the replay. I know there was a lot of information to cover here. We'll make sure we get the replay. If you're not connected with Marcel on LinkedIn, you definitely should be, because he posts a lot of great information there, as well as, of course, the Latin Trails Facebook page. But anyway, we thank you all for being with us today. Adriana, thank you too for being with us.
Thank you too. Thank you.
And this will conclude our webinar. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.